New businesses from around the globe are redefining the internet with the potential to take over. The current wave of online entrepreneurs are captivating the digital generation. Join me, Dan Brown, as I dig deeper into the internet's business scene and spend time with the voices behind the movement. This is Digital Business Billionaire. And hey, listen, if you want show transcripts and show notes for each episode emailed to you so you have everything available to you, you can go over to dbbshow.com right now and sign up to get those. So every time there's a new episode, we'll also email you the transcripts so you can read through them and the show notes with any resources or links we mention in the show in case you want to check that stuff out. And all you have to do is go over to dbbshow.com and sign up, and you'll get those delivered right to your email inbox. Hello everyone, this is Dan Brown, and I've got Mr. Yanik Silver joining me today for this interview. And I want to give a little bit of background on Yanik before we get into it. He's the founder and president of Surefire Marketing, runs one of the coolest events I've ever heard of called the Underground Online Seminar, which we'll be talking about today because Forbes called it the must-attend conference for all entrepreneurs. And Yanik is also a serial entrepreneur. He has such an inspirational story starting from his one-bedroom apartment with just a few $100, and from there, Yanik went on to build multiple seven-figure businesses. He's the author of several best-selling marketing books. Yanik is somewhat of an adventurer, which has even taken him most recently into outer space on a commercial spaceship, which is pretty awesome, and he's combined both his passions to found Maverick Business Adventures. So, Mr. Yanik Silver, welcome.
Hey, Dan, thanks.
It's a pleasure to be spending this time with you here doing an interview, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I love sharing some of the insights that I've gotten, and it will help hopefully a few more entrepreneurs.
Great, yeah. Well, you've got quite the reputation for what you do, also a really extensive track record with changing many people's lives, changing their businesses for the better, helping and empowering many, many thousands of people, and, probably into the hundreds of thousands now. And so what I'd like to start with is if, first of all, someone asked you, who is Yanik Silver? For some reason, maybe they've been living under a rock, they're not familiar with you, haven't heard who you are. Reading your bio is one thing, but what would you tell people? Like, who is Yanik Silver? Maybe share some of the background on how you became who you are today and what the pivotal moments were that, led to you becoming an online entrepreneur, Yanik.
Yeah, yes, that's interesting. I mean, I love pivotal moments. I love those inflection points in our lives, or, maybe even like synchronistic destiny moments, whatever you want to call them. I mean, it's pretty interesting to look back. It has to start for sure with my family coming over from Russia when I was 2.5. They had waited 6 years for a visa to come over, and like any immigrant success story, they had $256 in their pockets and not real much use of the English language. And my dad, within about 6 months of coming here, ended up starting his own company, not totally by choice, but basically because he got an ultimatum from the hospital he worked at that he had to either quit or because he was moonlighting on the side fixing other doctors' medical equipment. And so he decided to take the path less taken and started his own company. And so I grew up working for my dad's business. And so I got an opportunity super early on to be exposed to business, entrepreneurship, marketing, sales. At 14, I was telemarketing for my own leads, selling latex gloves. At 16, the deal was I got a car, but my dad sent me out to go cold call. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Allen, go make some sales." And so I got, I got the car, but only if I could go cold call some docs. And it was actually one of the doctor clients, one of those inflection points, pivotal moments. I had sold him his entire surgery center. He had like 8 rooms that I furnished for him, and he gave me a Jay Abraham tape. And Jay Abraham's a really great direct marketing guy, and he's like, he just got back from his Jay Abraham seminar. It's like, "Hey, would your dad ever send you to this?" I'm like, "Nah, no way." It's like a $5,000 seminar. But he's like, all right, well, listen to this tape. And so I just listened to this tape over and over again. It was kind of like, wow, the lights sort of went on for me. It was all about direct response marketing and how you don't need to really cold call anymore. And so then I just started getting really, really deep into it. And one of my mentors that I would also listen to over and over again is a guy named Earl Nightingale. And Earl Nightingale said you can become an expert in any subject you want for 1 hour. If you study or read or research it for 1 hour a day for 3 years, or you become a world expert in it if you do it for 1 hour a day for 5 years. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, what happens if you do it for 2 hours a day? Sometimes I was 17 or 18 at the time. And so I would just go really, really deep into copywriting, human psychology, and direct marketing. And that's kind of one of the pivotal ways that grew my dad's business from where it was into more of a national player. And then I kind of got this itch to really do more beyond that. And it turned into me, I was like, it's kind of almost like, you kind of take one step forward based on your skills that you have from before typically, and they keep expounding and building. And so, and also your network that you have and your connections and what you bring to the table. And so for me, at that point, it was direct marketing and it was doctors. So I started working with a few doctors, consulting with them, helping them get more patients. And I realized that there's no real leverage there. So I started learning about information marketing and selling content. And I put out my first ad back in '98 for a kit that I was going to put together for doctors, helping them get more patients. Because I was working with doctors that wanted more cosmetic patients so that they wouldn't have to deal with managed care and insurance. And so, it's actually, one of those other pivotal moments. So put the ad out, had 10 doctors respond with, raising their hands. I had the sales letter done, but I didn't have anything else done. And so on the final deadline, actually right before the final deadline, I called the office of the guy that I bought this product from, teaching you how to do this. And the woman there, her name was Heather, she's like, honey, you just mailed the third notice. No one had responded. I'm like, all right. And so I mailed the third notice, and, I'm thinking back, if I hadn't mailed the third notice, what would have happened? But I mailed this third notice to the same 10 doctors with the deadline looming. And the last day of the deadline, I got this order, through the fax machine. I'd always been running up to the fax machine at my dad's office to go check it out. And finally, I got an order. It was $900. So excited. And then I, realized that shit, I don't have this thing done. So I sent back a letter to the doctor saying, hey, this is being reprinted, and you'll have it within 30 days. We won't charge your card until then. And thank you for your order. And so that gave me the impetus and the energy to go do that. And working like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. nights a lot of times to go get this kit done. And that turned into kind of this $10,000, $15,000 a month project for doctors, helping them grow their practice, selling these kits. And then I saw the internet really come along, and I'm like, wow, I got all the skills that can really make that work. And I asked myself this question, how do you create a fully automatic website that makes you money while you sleep? Is an incredible value to people, and it's not just another ebook. And literally at 3 o'clock in the morning, I got my answer, and that was for something called instant sales letters, and jumped out of bed and went to work on that. And kind of as I say, the rest is history, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've actually personally bought instant sales letters. Really cool. Definitely, like you said, not just an ebook. So the first information product you were selling, kind of what drove you to marketing info products online, was that kit to doctors, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even online. It was like mail order.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I mean, is it safe to say that if you wouldn't have mailed out that third notice, would you be doing what you're doing, you think?
I don't know. I've asked myself that question before, and I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it's almost like, when you have something that's within you, it's going to come out in some different way. It's like, it'll still keep popping up in multiple ways. So who knows what would have happened, but I don't know. I really don't know. It's one of those things that some people have heard the saying, like, most people give up on like the 1 yard line, and that's what happened. That would have happened here.
Right. I think one of the really important things that you said, you talked about, was when you're talking about sending out these packages for doctors, you talked about how there wasn't really, actually it was about when you were consulting doctors,
Yeah.
You were saying that there wasn't much leverage there, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my next question, because I'm wondering here, you're really great at creating leverage. Obviously, that goes through your thought process. It's ingrained in your strategy. So I'm wondering, how do you go about creating leverage in your online business, and more specifically in an online information business?
Well, for me, yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the key thoughts that you need to consider and think about is where's the leverage going to come from, what effort you put in, and hopefully it's going to be multiplied, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times over. So let's say we're creating content. I'd want to create not only great content that, I don't know, let's just take, putting together maybe a webinar series or something like that. So one of my best products that really just took off was this webinar that we did on public domain, like how to get information out of the public domain that's free for people to use, but not many people knew about it at the time when I first talked about it. I had been using it for years and years. And so we did, actually it started as a teleseminar and made it a 2-part teleseminar, charged people for it. And so I got paid to actually create the content. So, that was leverage number one. Then, of course, recording it and then continuing to sell it, next piece of leverage. And then, you want to run with your winners. And so that was a big deal. We had like 800 people that paid for that call. So obviously I knew I was onto something. And so the next thing was to take them to kind of a next level in what they're doing with their public domain stuff, and created, I think, a $600 or $700 more of a home study course all around what they should do with it after they get the public domain information. And that was called like Public Domain Quantum Leap or something like that. And then you want to keep listening to what your customers are telling you. And the next leverage really came from that. They're like, well, we don't know if it actually is public domain, or we want, someone's basically do all the work for you. And that's not really a uncommon kind of thing that people want. They want it done as easy as possible. And I learned that even with the doctor's kit, like the thing that really drove selling the doctor's kit was we had these patient attraction toolkits that were on diskette at the time. So dating myself a little bit, but on diskette at the time, we'd have these pre-done ads, letters, educational reports, press releases, you pretty much name it, stuff they could put around their office for a particular procedure. So if it was tumescent liposuction, if it was breast augmentation, if it was, blepharoplasty or something like that. And that's what really drove the kit sales. And so, I learned those lessons and really, really early on. And so then what we created was this public domain gold mine. And, once again, a done-for-you type thing. I talk about them being, so public domain gold mine was like, actually, we had originally like 35 works in different subjects, plus works for scan, plus we did all the keyword research, plus potential partner research, all this different stuff, just handed them. And we went through like 10, 12 volumes of that. It was a huge seller. And so that's one way of getting leverage with your content.
Cool. I think that's pretty important, because a lot of people, they probably, go out there and they just want to, maybe they dabble a bit in product creation and they create what they think that would sell. But, what you're saying is kind of counterintuitive, rather than, surveying your audience, surveying your list, seeing what they actually want to buy, and then creating it from there. But it actually, has a benefit where you mentioned how you actually got paid before you even created the product. So.
Right. And one thing I do want to point out is I don't normally do surveys that much. I like people voting with their wallets. And so, you literally could say, okay, we're going to do these 5 teleseminars in the next 2 weeks. What's it take you, an hour to do a teleseminar or something like that? And you'll know right away, based on the subject and basically the title of the teleseminar, what's hot and what's not. And it's even more ideal if maybe you charge a small dollar amount. Maybe it's $7, something that they're putting a little bit of something on the line there. And now you'll know, okay, where should I start creating products around?
Right, and I think also you mentioned, so you're having people vote with their wallets. I see Ryan Dice do this a lot. He'll charge like $7 for a teleseminar or a webinar series.
Yeah.
And then if if it's like you said, if you sell 800 units or 1,000 units, whatever, you have all this social proof already built in when you want to go ahead and sell the recording.
Yeah,
so.
Plus you get people, that would be testimonials. You follow up with them after the call and so forth, and it's a good way of really testing the waters. And it's like an amazing time right now because also you don't need to really expend that much time, energy. You can let the marketplace kind of tell you what's going on, and even using platforms like Indiegogo or Kickstarter and so forth, where people would actually essentially pre-buy what you're putting out there. It's really, really exciting.
Right, right. Indiegogo is really cool. I've actually just started using that to fund some of my books, and like you said, it's just basically people voting with their wallets. If you don't have enough people vote, then you don't even have to do the project. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. And I mean, you make this sound pretty easy here, just working on the parts of your business that give you so much leverage. So for all of our listeners who maybe it's not so easy for them, they've hit some hurdles along the way, a few challenges. How do you go about really creating this laser focus day in and day out to take massive action on the high value activities, on the things that are going to directly produce revenue for your company?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I even do every day. I think I'm definitely much more of someone that follows where my energy and where my passion is, and it's a lot harder to get motivated to be like, okay, well, just pragmatically or just bottom line, I'm going to go focus on these three things because I know that's going to bring me in the most revenue. I've literally, cut off projects that are making me a good amount of money because they didn't fit what direction I was going and where I was going. So, I don't think that you necessarily need to be, robot-like kind of, okay, I need to focus for X amount of time today on this project, or else things aren't going to work out. Like I'm definitely much more about the more intuitive. Let's figure out where you're excited because that's going to lead you to some of your best breakthroughs. And even if there are sometimes like the last 6-7 years, I've really been focused a lot on this Maverick group of companies, and financially it's probably been a bit of a step backwards, but in personal fulfillment, it's been 2-3 steps forward, and that to me is even more powerful when you really break it down.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe better question here. How do you find, so let's say, I mean, you're following your passions, obviously. How would you find the most important things to focus on with regards to your passion? But talking about business,
Yeah.
like, so let's say you have your underground online seminar, that's your big passion here. How do you figure out what you need to be working on any given day for that?
Sure. Well, when I had kids, that kind of really helped focus me even more because then I wanted to be committed to being there for the most part when they come home from school. Now that they're in school, but I wanted to spend time with them. Like I really loved even seeing like little things like making sure I was going to not miss their first steps, or even like little things like their first smile and so forth. And so that means that you can't be working 24/7. So I'm a big fan of the 80/20 rule, which if you start looking at most activities, there's 20% activities that lead to 80% of your results, and then the other 80% of your activities will lead to 20% of your results. So I would start cutting out all those things that are at that 80% and just start thinking about, okay, once again, going back to where's our leverage. And so those 20% activities or 20% projects, those are going to be the ones that I want to focus on. And so I've experimented with different things over the years. There's something called the Pomodoro technique that's really, really good. I think it's a 20-minute timer that you set, and you just focus on whatever your highly whatever your high productive activity is going to be. So for me, it might be writing or even just thinking through a project, and I'll work through that. And so I do it in actually 33-minute chunks, and I learned that from this great copywriter, guy named Eugene Schwartz. And same thing, don't focus on anything else. Just even if you're going to literally just sit and stare at your computer screen, but not get distracted with Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, and just focusing on those chunks. And then you got an opportunity to go take a few breaks and so forth. And really, I also work best when I schedule it. So typically, I will schedule out a task that needs to be done and stick it on my calendar. If it's writing a sales letter, if it's whatever it is, an interview that goes on the calendar, and making it a little less discretionary time. But I also thrive on free time, and most people don't put enough of that in their calendars. So I'll take multiple free days throughout the year that are just no business, won't even open up my laptop or anything like that, and just either doing something fun that I used to love to do as a kid, or something cool like maybe we'll talk about Maverick Business Adventures a little bit, but something that really rejuvenates you.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, it actually gives the benefit of, like, personally for me, because I do kind of the same sort of thing as you. You're talking about 33-minute chunks, but normally what I'll do is work in like a 55-minute chunk and then take a 5-minute break to 15-minute break, depending on the day. And you're talking about taking, full days off, not even opening up your laptop, and that must help you when, the next day you come back and you're like, all right, I got to work. You must be much more motivated, would you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's and a lot of people say they're taking off, but they sneak in their email on their phone or whatever. Like, my email's not even attached to my phone. I have one secret private email that goes to my phone that my wife has if she really needs to get a hold of me, or of course, people could text me, but when I'm off, I really try and even just turn off the phone and so forth. It's a really freeing, sometimes scary feeling for people.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The email addiction, the Facebook addiction. It's really, when it's all said and done, though, I think it's just kind of a time suck. So
Total time suck.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, we're moving this interview towards finding out how to focus on your high value activities, the 80-20 rule. So could you just kind of expand on that just a little bit, on the 80-20 rule? Like, how would you, right, like we understand the 80-20 principle, but how would you figure out what is that 20% that provides the 80% of results?
If you're selling something already, I'd go back and look at your your data on your sales, and if you're selling multiple items, you're going to see that show up. So then it's like, okay, great. Well, those are the key products I should be focusing on. And does that mean that I need to be, spending a little bit more time, even like working on my landing page to try and tweak it and get it up, get the conversion up? Should I be, looking at key partners? Like when I ran, at one point I ran Dan Kennedy's affiliate program for him, and so I had, with my original affiliate program, for instance, sales letters, we had like 40,000 affiliates. And you go back and analyze the data, and it wasn't even 80-20. It was more like 97-3 for the most part. 3% of the affiliates were bringing in 90% of the revenue. And so using that information, when I start running Dan's affiliate program for him, we went to just 100 high leveraged connections that we all knew had big reach in the entrepreneurial marketplace that we're going after, and just approach them. And that was, those 100, 110, 120 people we brought in as affiliates were responsible for like $4 million in 1 year in sales. So you want to look at it across all different places where it can have an impact on your business.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, to just think about that, that's pretty crazy. If you think about it, 3% of affiliates are making, 90% of all sales.
Yeah.
Like that, I mean, definitely, like you said, that's leverage too, because you took that and then, applied it to Dan's GKIC, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So how did that work out for Dan Kennedy, like off the bat?
I mean, I think they were pretty happy. They made, $4 million in sales directly attributed to those 100 some affiliates, and they were just able to, really nurture. It's a lot easier to nurture 100 some individuals than it is to try and nurture 40,000 people.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. I mean, so for our listeners here, most of them, they already have a front-end product. They're already selling information. So for you being more experienced in creating, not just front-end products, but creating full-out sales funnels, tweaking your revenue model, things like that, tweaking conversions, how do you go about mapping out a sales funnel for the information that you're selling or that you're going to sell?
I think where, once again, going back to leverage, right? Like, I think where the biggest leverage that we have is the existing customers who come in. So if they have a front end that's, at least working and hopefully front end positive, then there's a big opportunity to really jump people up to hopefully a higher level, higher value, high price product. And I once did a workshop. It was $10,000 a person on just exactly how to sell high price products and the psychology behind it and so forth. And I think that a lot of people, I don't know, might be scared of it or think that they can't do it or I don't know what exactly happens, but a lot of times it's just as easy to sell a higher priced product as it is a lower priced product. And you even have, the psychology of price working in your favor. You got positioning working in your favor. And you got margins that you can deliver a higher price or a higher value experience. So for me, one of my kind of inner tenets that I've always said is that, I get rich by enriching others 10 times to 100 times what they pay me in return. And so the same holds true for if we're going to be creating a higher priced product. And, high price is relative. So it could be a $500 product. It could be a $1,000 product. It could be a $5,000 or $10,000 product. But, you're gonna see that it's the customers that actually pay more are typically the ones that are easier to deal with and love you more and really actually follow your advice typically. And I've helped students do it in pretty much every niche and marketplace you could think of. Where people are like, well, nobody's gonna pay for whatever or several $100s for that or several $1,000s for that, and it's just not true. It's all in the way that you position it and how do you get them to their 10x value for them. And then sometimes it's even almost like a slightly different way of looking at it. So I had one person I was working with that used to be my mastermind group, and they had an ebook that was doing really well on how to get your baby to sleep. And it was, obviously solved a pressing need for new mothers that couldn't get their babies to sleep, and they were doing good, several $100,000 a year, so doing, really well on the front end. And there wasn't that much more that they could do. I mean, they tested out their front end massively. They had done all the things, but what I'd like to do is even then completely reinvent what they're doing. And so we pulled together, essentially created a certification program for once moms went through that program, they loved it, they wanted to talk about it, and a lot of times moms wanted something else to do on the side while they're raising their child. So we taught them about how to become this lucrative baby sleep coach where you could charge $150 an hour to do what that book was saying, and that's how the person that wrote the book originally started. And in the early stages, we ended up selling, $100,000, $200,000 of the certification, and that was just like a very early first front-end test. And so that was, a new way of kind of like reinventing what they were doing.
Yeah, and I mean, you're at the same time, you're still selling information. You're not really moving away from your model. You're not extending yourself too far. It's highly leveraged, obviously.
Yeah, you're still in your wheelhouse of what the category is and what the content is all about, and but you're just serving people in a slightly different way.
Right. I think really the common objection here or the common concern for people, like you said, is they're kind of not really confident in their ability to sell something for a higher price, or maybe they don't think that, they could do it in their market, or that they don't have enough value to present to people. But what you just said is kind of, much more creative. It's thinking outside the box. So could you help us think through this whole process for someone who has a front-end information product to then how would they go about creating a higher priced offer that they could sell for a premium price if, they have those objections?
Yeah, so, I mean, one way is, an ascending type process where they get more of, let's say you are the content producer, the expert, the authority that they're looking up to. So in some cases, they get more of you. And then, you want to be careful that it doesn't just turn into straight one-on-one coaching unless that's what you want and you're willing, you're okay with that. You got to think through what your offer is going to be and then, everything looks good on the front end, and then all of a sudden you're like, I really hate doing whatever I'm doing, and then you feel like stuck in whatever offer that you just created and put out there. So you want to think through it and see, should it be group coaching instead of one-on-one coaching? Should it be where people come to you several times a year for higher end like peer-to-pear groups? And it all depends. I'm also huge on experiences, so if we can make it more of an experience than simply that they're reading written material and listening to audios or watching videos, like, how do we add a true experience to what they're doing, and people will pay for that.
So let's just create a hypothetical example here and kind of think through it. Let's say I were to package up this interview that we're doing right now, all the value that you shared, and I'm going to sell it to our target market, to aspiring entrepreneurs. And let's say I'm not even front end positive here. I'm giving away 100% commissions. So you're talking about basically, you talked about a group coaching model, one-on-one coaching, if that's your wheelhouse, if that's something you want to do. But let's just say group coaching coupled with an experience. Like, how would you kind of package that together as an upsell for this interview?
Yeah, so I would, I'd start thinking really tightly about who it is I want to serve. Like, if it's just entrepreneurs, it's not going to be as good as, it sounds like it's for information marketers or potential information marketers. And then, you could even possibly narrow it down even more. And you could say, okay, it's going to be for new information marketers, that haven't hit their first 100,000 yet or something like that, or maybe haven't even made their first sale yet. It kind of depends on who you want to work with. And then so I would package up a few of the interviews together, make that your front end, and then say, okay, well, now we're going to here's the coaching program. And it's always about creating a good hook or an angle for it. So let's say it's, how to make your first dollar selling what you know in your head or something like that, or how to get, your first 100 customers or whatever it is. So give it a hook, and then that's the coaching program, and then it's going to be 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And then at the end of it, make it even more exciting. So at the end of it, that they get to submit their idea, and that you would submit it to, I don't know, all the people that you did the interview with for them potentially to, who knows, even tweet about it or talk about it, or you might even be able to secure 20 minutes of mentoring or 30 minutes of mentoring from each of the interview people that you've done. And so you guys at the end of the 8-week program would vote on the best one, or customers would vote on the best one, and then they would win mentoring from the people that they just learned from. So there's lots of ways that you can creatively give it a higher value and make it something different and something that's really exciting for the end user as well.
So would you, still staying with this hypothetical example here, would you stick that right in as like a one-click upsell or an immediate upsell, or would you create a longer-term email campaign to warm up your buyers and then sell it like that?
I think if you're going to be delivering it constantly, it'd be fine as a one-click. If it's something that's going to be, maybe delivered 4 times a year or something like that, it's probably better as a more event-driven, almost like a launch that you go out there and really say, okay, well, we have this amount of spots that we're doing, and the next session opens up in, this time for get your first 100 customers, blah, 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 coaching program.
Right, so it really mostly depends on the offer.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I think that could definitely benefit a lot of people who are listening to this call. I'm taking a lot of value away from that too. And we're talking about, packaging in coaching with an experience, and that's not really something that a lot of people talk about, selling an experience, right? So I know you run the Underground online seminar. It's probably the best seminar in our industry. Maybe even online. So let's talk a bit about that for a second. Do you want to just kind of talk us through how you went about creating the Underground online seminar, what the mission behind it is, and the type of people who it serves?
Yeah, I think it's a real good lesson for people to hear about how it was actually created, because So we're coming up on our 10th year here in February, and so it was about 10 some years ago that I was sitting around in a bar with one of my buddies, and he'd just been to a seminar, internet marketing seminar. He's like, dude, this thing was biggest pitch fest. He's like, all the people up there were just selling how to make money online based on what they were doing, selling how to make money online stuff. Like there's no real content. He's like, a ton of people. Why don't you put together something where these real world people are sharing what they're doing? He's like, I'll be one of the first speakers. And at that time, he was in the golf niche, selling yoga instruction to golfers. And I'm like, all right, yeah, that sounds good. I'll do it. And literally on the back of the Delta boarding stub, I kind of put together a list of people that were doing real well online that not many people knew about, but were that might come in and share what they're doing. And that's how the Underground was born. And all along, it's been kind of like one of those keys. So we talked originally about giving people stuff on a silver platter. So I call that a fish product, which was, the saying that if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. If you hand a man a fish, you feed him for a day kind of thing. And people want the fish handed to them, actually, which was what instant sales letters was and that public domain gold mine and so forth that we talked about. So one of the other kind of product hooks a lot that I go back to is going the opposite direction. And everyone else was putting on seminars, same people, pretty much the exact same people on stage selling the exact same stuff. And that's what really made Underground different was these real world people. And then we also, I also decided that we're going to make it a true experience. And so it's a spy theme, and every year is a slightly different spy theme. And we've done everything from like Austin Powers to Mission Profitable to James Bond, and had celebrities like Mini-Me, Vern Troyer there, and the guys who played Bond, George Lazenby was there before, and so we've done all sorts of fun stuff to make it a true experience for people, because I really believe in not just putting on a great educational event, but making it fun and exciting, because that's where the bonds come from and the connections come from, and I've seen that happen because people are typically, or a lot of times will attribute a connection or a meeting to the Underground or to me and give me credit for it, even though I might not have personally even introduced them, but just because of the environment that it was in was so powerful for those for that networking and the high level connections to come together. So who it serves is really intermediate to advanced online marketers and entrepreneurs in all different categories. I mean, we do have a lot of people that are in the publishing information type side of things, but we also have a lot in software who come out in mobile, in e-commerce, affiliate marketers, pretty much anyone who's in the internet marketing and online entrepreneurship space, and pretty much never know who you're sitting next to because the audience is like 60% doing 6, 7, 8 figures, and so it's a pretty high level audience who come together there.
Very cool. I mean, sounds like a pretty unique experience, like a spy theme coupled with marketing. You would never think, that the two would go hand in hand. So I definitely want to recommend that anyone listening to this call go check that out. And where would you send people if they're interested in seeing what the Underground Online Seminar, what it's all about, and what you got in store for UGS, I guess, yeah. UGS 10 and UGS 11.
Go to undergroundonlineseminar.com.
Okay, cool. Pretty easy. I'll have a link for that below this interview as well for all our listeners. So, Yanik, with all that said, tons of great stuff on the call today. Now, keeping in mind that we're speaking to a group of online information entrepreneurs, people who are trying to add profits to their information business, do you have any kind of last words for our listeners here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's almost like when I even started selling information really back in 2000 online, so many people were like, well, everything's free online, how are you going to be able to sell anything? And it's probably only gotten worse, but it's also at the same time gotten incredibly better because the public at large has gotten used to paying for different things, whether it's iTunes or Kindle books and different things. And so I'd be thinking about, where's my leverage with partners? So whether it's using distribution sources like Amazon or eBay still, or iTunes, and trying to get those customers in the door, in multiple doors, and then bringing them into a process and a sequence, and just thinking about how we're going to walk them through and ascend them into higher levels and higher levels of products, services, experiences that deliver even higher value for what they're looking to do.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, Yanik, for jumping on the call with us today. I know you got to run, so I don't want to keep you for too long here. So thanks again for jumping on the call, and it was my pleasure hosting you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for tuning in to the Digital Business Billionaire Show. I want to just remind you one more time, if you want transcripts of the show, the show notes, and all of that delivered to your email inbox, all you have to do is go over to dbbshow.com and you can sign up to get those absolutely free. That's over at dbbshow.com.